Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Tedora. I'm an ECS career coach with Johnson Career Services, and welcome to the virtual presentation of Comets Converse, where we're going to be discussing Networking 101. We're going to start off with a guest speaker, and then we're going to get into some of the tips and tricks for networking yourself. So let's get started. Our guest speaker today, Dr. Ben Porter, is a professor for the Department of Bioengineering. And through his career, he's become very familiar with professional networking. So we're networking with him to get some of his insights and information that he's picked up within his own experiences.
Hi, I'm Ben Porter. I'm an associate professor of instruction in the Department of Bioengineering. I'm also a student success coordinator for bioengineering. I've been asked to talk with you about networking. I like networking. I think it's important. I think a lot of people get intimidated by networking because they don't necessarily have a great understanding of what networking is, or they think that networking is something really scary because it's a social thing that you're supposed to do, and they might not necessarily feel very comfortable going about doing it. I would like to start off by thinking about networking in a slightly different way, maybe with a definition. So, networking, it's something that you already do. You've already done it. You've already made friends with people. You've already have a family. You might already have a love interest. There's lots of different ways that you've already started networking. We're talking about professional networking. This is just a different type of relationship. Instead of having a common interest like basketball or music or something along those lines, you have a common interest that is along the lines of a professional topic. So, as I mentioned, I'm in bioengineering. So, I have an interest in the brain. Okay? Um, I am interested in how the brain recovers and how we might help it to recover faster from brain damage, right? So, what kind of networking might I do? Well, obviously, I might network with other bioengineers, with other neuroscientists who study the brain, but I also might need to network with clinicians, people who are working with patients who have had brain damage. I probably need to start networking with people with actual brain damage that I can help recover. I might also look for some areas outside of bioengineering and neuroscience to people who do um, occupational therapy, right? Therapy that already is supposed to help people, but isn't necessarily with the brain science aspect. It's more just along the lines of physical therapy, trying to help them recover those abilities. I might even need to reach out to, depending on the training I want to do, I may need to reach out to some creative people who are good with art. I need to reach out to the people who are good with literature and can help design certain experiments or certain pieces of information that can be used to test different subjects. There's lots of opportunities for me to network or to collaborate with these other people. And the interest doesn't have to be that we're both interested in brain damage. It could be for the artist that they're interested in the different perspectives that people with brain damage may bring. I may be interested more on the healing aspect of it, but there's this little bit of overlap between. So the overlap can be very, very broad. Another example would be I work at UT Dallas, right? I'm an instructor. Other people who work at UT Dallas could include, let's say, our administrative assistants. For the most part, they focus on the financial aspects of things, but we both serve our students. Okay, we both serve you. Our goal is to make sure that you can be successful. So in that way, we have that overlap, and I need to network with the administrative assistants so that we can work well together. So networking can be very, very broad, the network that you need to lay down. I had a student who their parent works for Abbott, which is a big name in bioengineering, but didn't really know even what their parent did. So when it came down to finding and reaching out and looking for jobs, they talked to their parent and it's like, oh, I do that for a living, right? That's where I work. So networking, you can have different types of networks that you already know some people who are friends, and then you start incorporating them as your professional network. Same with family. Same with, I don't know, people at the gym or people at your church or people that you just know kind of tangentially through life. Those networks just happen. You just need to start asking questions. It can also happen in places where you would least expect it. So Starbucks seems to be a natural one, or any place where you go for coffee. See somebody who's sitting alone, there's an opportunity there. In the student union, You see somebody just eating by themselves, there's always an opportunity there. If you just can be a little gutsy and ask, may I sit with you, right? You can find networking anywhere. If I'm getting ready to go to a conference and I'm at the airport, I am catching a flight to go to San Francisco because that's where my conference is, and I see other people carrying poster containers on the same flight to San Francisco, chances are they're going to the same conference that I am, or at least some sort of conference, and I can start broaching that topic with them in networking. Even if they're not going to the same conference, it's still an opportunity to start talking to them, right? So you're looking for those reasons. Another form of very targeted networking is called informational interviews, or basically you just want to meet one single person because they're so cool, right? If I'm looking to get a new job, let's say I'm going to pick on the provost for a second. I'm really interested in becoming provost. I'm not, but if I wanted to become provost, I could reach out to our provost on campus, Provost Musselman, and ask, hi, I'm really interested in learning more about what you do and everything that needs to go into it. Do you have 10 or 15 minutes we could talk? Right? That is establishing a network. It is very professional because I'm going to go in and ask them questions. If they don't have time for it, that's fine. But it's very targeted because I'm looking to become a provost and I'm targeting the provost or any provost, right? Look at other schools too. I can find those connections through LinkedIn. I can find them through company websites, or I can find it through my network that already exists, my friends and family. Key thing when you're doing those targeted networking opportunities, or if you're networking just kind of in general, make sure you're not wasting the other person's time or your own. So one of the ways to be memorable and keep them wanting to network with you and keep wanting them to working with you is to make sure you're not wasting their time and asking questions that you can answer on your own or doing things that you can figure out on your own. So you want to be asking questions of your network. You want to keep that relationship alive, but at the same time, it shouldn't be that you're asking basic questions. Like if I'm trying to network with a faculty member who's doing research, I'm not going to ask them, what's your research? I can find that on my own. I can go look that up online. As long as it's not a spur of the moment type of thing, like I just met them at a networking event. But if I knew them ahead of time, I can go online and look up what their research is. And then ask more in-depth questions. So use your networking to ask those more in-depth questions and build that better relationship so that they will want to continue to network with you in the future. So they will only continue to have that relationship in the future. Keep in mind, the network goes both ways. You're not necessarily asking them for a favor. It may feel like that because the power dynamic can be off because you're talking to a professor, but eventually that professor may actually ask you for a favor. Maybe 10 years down the road, maybe 20 years down the road. But it goes both ways. So don't feel awkward about asking people to network. So when it comes to faculty and how you can use them in your future opportunities, use their networks. So you want to get to know them, go to them during office hours, talk to them, get to know them. As I said, let them get to know you is more important. Let them get to know your professional aspirations, what you want to do. And usually when you start talking along those lines, that's going to make me start thinking, who do I already know that I can connect this person with? So you start asking some probing questions about, I'm really interested in getting into this job, selling medical devices. What sort of things should I be looking to do, right? I'm not even asking if you know anybody I should talk to, but I'm asking, what are the sorts of skills that I need? And that's going to make me start thinking. And then eventually, I'll probably going to want to connect you to the 3 or 4 people I know who do medical device sales. So a lot of things can happen through talking to your faculty. Networking is how you find mentors. And mentors help you to get the next steps in life, really. They help to give you advice when you are in a pinch point. They help to basically just make you feel sane sometimes. Focus on being memorable in a good way. You don't want to be the person who shows up late, or when you go to network with somebody, you don't show up at all, or you're not dressed professionally, or you're using words or slang that you shouldn't really be using. You want to keep it at a professional level. Okay? Sometimes that's going to fluctuate a little bit depending on the relationship that you establish with the person and the rapport, but you at least want to start it off very professionally and be memorable for making a good impression. You will find that your network will shut down very quickly if you are the person who complains a lot or doesn't show up on time, or bad mouths other people. You want to keep it very positive. I have found that networking continues well beyond after you get the job. For me, every job outside of college, actually, even some job opportunities while I was in college, I think all but one out of 10 I found through networking. So either faculty were helping me to meet people, or my employers, or even friends from high school were able to help me network and find jobs that way. So you want to continue networking. You never know what your next steps in your career are going to be. You never know if you're about to get laid off and you need to find a career that way, or if your career interests are shifting and you just want to pursue a different route, or if you're just looking for that next great thing. Either way, you want to continue networking professionally. Um, Aside from the career opportunities, networking professionally also sets you up for greater things. Great sets you up for greater it sets you up for greater experiences, greater and richer collaborations, new experiences. So you get to help, or you get to learn new things that you wouldn't necessarily get to learn otherwise.
A big thank you to Dr. Porter for participating in our discussion today. It's always so valuable to get perspective from someone who's active and involved in their field. So I hope you guys found it really helpful to hear from Dr. Porter, and let's move on to the rest of the presentation now. So knowing how and where to get involved is the first step of networking, and there are multiple ways to go about this. Joining student organizations can be a great way to meet friends with similar interests and career pursuits as you. If you would like to get involved outside of student organizations, we can also talk a little bit about professional networking events, which can be a great opportunity to meet professionals and sometimes mentors who are involved in your desired industry. Attending career fairs is a great way to meet some people who are already working in the field and may be looking to hire. And then, of course, you can also get involved in the virtual style of networking through social media websites like LinkedIn or platforms that allow you to read and post blogs, or even something like YouTube. There are over 40 different student organizations just within UTD's ECS program, so I highly recommend you check them out online and consider joining at least one. It can be a fantastic opportunity to make friends, gain experience, or maybe even to try taking on a leadership role within the group. And recruiters will even sometimes connect with these groups to try and find potential hires. As for professional networking groups outside of UTD, you can often find professional events and workshops for your industry through a simple Google search. A couple of example websites to take a look at are Meetup, which is what you see pictured in this screenshot, or Eventbrite. You'll want to search a term like computer science professional networking near me so that you can find events happening related to your industry and also in your area. There are also often remote options to choose from as well. These types of networking groups tend to offer information sessions, workshops, and social events that are relevant to your field, and they're a great way to strengthen your knowledge of the professional community within your desired position or industry. Now let's talk a little bit about attending a networking event. When attending any sort of networking event, be sure to bring some ideas for conversation so that you're prepared and able to make the most of your attendance. Thinking of some questions to ask others in advance is going to help you get the conversation flowing. Bring a notepad in case you need to write down any important information for upcoming events, contact info of the people you meet, or details you need to remember. Be sure to dress professionally. Remember that networking events are often an opportunity to start paving the way towards making connections and getting a job. Bring your own contact materials as well, such as social media links or a business card, so that people are able to contact you easily after you've parted ways. And of course, be sure to bring a smile because you want to exude a confident and positive attitude at these events so that you can make the first impression that's going to leave people wanting to stay connected with you. So, how do you go about socializing at these events? It can be hard to know what to talk about when you've never been to a networking function before. So, here are just a few tips to keep you on track. Switch from guest to host behavior. This means take initiative. At these events, you will often need to make the first move of talking to others. Don't stand around waiting for them to come to you because they might not. Introduce yourself. If you see someone else standing alone, that's the person you should go talk to. You can also introduce people you know or have already met to other people, and this way you won't have to maintain a one on one conversation for too long if you're worried about running out of things to talk about. Ask questions until you find something in common. Open ended questions are helpful to avoid reaching a block in the conversation. So, this means asking questions that don't have a yes or no response but require more elaboration. An example of this is rather than asking, "Are you enjoying the event?" Try asking, "What brought you to this event?" or "How did you find out about this event?" Since their explanation will require more than just a one word answer, it's going to help provide opportunities to keep the conversation moving. You may be meeting a lot of different people, so don't be afraid to take notes to remember names and important ideas. This will also be helpful if you choose to reach out to the person later because it's going to help you remember everything you discussed with them. Avoid talking only to people you know and try not to spend more than 10 minutes with any one person. Networking events are all about making new connections, so try to get out of your comfort zone. If you're feeling a little uncomfortable or shy around new people, then you know it's working. Practicing making conversations with new people will help you grow and become more comfortable in situations where you need it. An elevator pitch is always a useful tool for introducing yourself, and it's a little bit different when you're using this for a networking event rather than a recruiting event because you're not necessarily trying to sell yourself to a job, but instead build professional relationships. But you can still use this to guide your introduction. So here are the three main components to focus on. You're going to start by introducing yourself. Give your name, your degree, and or your job title. Then you're going to briefly describe your experiences or skills within the industry to give the other person some background information about yourself. And for the third part, you can provide information on what you're seeking to give the person an idea of what your goals of attending the networking event are. I would also recommend ending your elevator pitch with a question for the person you're speaking with. This will help to get them talking about themselves so that you can begin forming a connection with them and finding things you might have in common. When preparing for these conversations, here are some things to keep in mind. What do you want to learn? You want to know some questions in advance, not only to prompt conversation, but so that you can reflect on what you're getting out of the networking experiences. Ask those open ended questions and start pondering how networking might be beneficial to you and what you want out of the relationships you build. You should also consider what you want to share. You'll need to know which stories are the best reflection of you and consider how that information you share might possibly help others in their journey. Also, keep in mind that asking open ended questions is a two-way street. So, when you are answering other people's questions, you should also be trying to provide enough information that they can give a response. So, avoid those one word answers of yes and no and try your best to elaborate or end on a question that will put the ball back in their court. And while some of you might struggle with talking too little, others may find that they struggle with talking too much. This is also a problem. So keep the 43-57 rule in mind. This means to aim to talk 43% of the time and aim to listen 57% of the time. The interaction should be close to equal, but it is polite to listen more than you talk. This will also ensure the conversation is mutually beneficial because no one wants to be stuck talking to the person who has nothing to say, but it's also not very fun to be talked at rather than spoken to. As for topics to stick to within your conversations, you don't need to be too terribly strict, and you're welcome to talk about just about anything as long as it's professional and thoughtful. A couple of ideas you might try talking about are what's going at the event. You could ask how they're enjoying it or if they've tried any good food. You may also ask others about themselves and their academic journey or the companies that they work for. Talking about relevant information like social media, current events, or advancements within the industry is also fine. You can even talk about personal interests or hobbies. If you reach any awkward silences, then that's a great time to ask a question about any of these topics. The main thing, though, is to keep in mind that you should be respectful, be thoughtful of others, give everyone you speak with the same time and attention that you would want from them. You don't want to make anyone feel like you're disinterested in them or their experiences or to put them down in any way. Also, don't be too negative. You don't want to complain about work or your boss or anything like that. It's very unprofessional. Unless the event is relevant to it, avoid controversial topics like religion or politics, as this can be uncomfortable and might leave a negative impression. Keep things light, positive, and genuine, and you are sure to make a good connection. Now, if you've ever been unsure of how to exit a conversation, you know exactly how awkward it can be to wrap things up. So let's talk a little bit about how to make a smooth exit. You don't want to leave a conversation too abruptly. If you do this, you may make the other person feel like you just abandoned them without any consideration. A good moment for you to leave is when others walk up to join the conversation or after you've introduced someone else into the conversation. And this way you can just say, "I'll leave you two to chat. It was great meeting you." It's best to avoid leaving someone by themselves, but if you really need to make an exit and you can't introduce others into the conversation, just be sure to make it a friendly goodbye. If you wish to stay in contact, ask for their contact information. If you don't see yourself connecting with them, just be pleasant and say, I've enjoyed our chat. I'm going to go say hello to a few other people, or I don't want to take up more of your time. If I don't run into you again, I hope you enjoy the event. And if you do get someone's contact information, be sure to use it. Send them a message within 24 to 48 hours while your face is still fresh on their mind. You can revisit a conversation, ask a question, or even just tell them how great it was to meet them. And you don't want to blow up their phone or anything, so while it's okay to send a couple of messages, do your best to match the timing and length of their responses so that you aren't putting too much or too little energy into it. But remember, networking doesn't end at the event, and you do want to maintain your relationships with the people in your network. And so there are two ways to go about this. You can either engage in active networking or passive networking. Active networking means directly seeking information and job leads from people you know. It tends to be more focused and intentional. Passive networking tends to be more about indirect interactions with contacts and other professionals in your industry or related fields. It is usually the first steps in moving towards the more direct engagements that you get with active networking. Let's break that down a little bit more. So, examples of active networking behaviors are introducing yourself to a new contact with the purpose of adding them to your network, initiating conversations with other professionals, whether it's just stopping to chat or commenting something substantial on their social media post. It may also look like seeking information about professional development or gaining knowledge about their experiences so that you can consider and apply them within your own experiences, which is a good way to get onto that person's radar because they're able to see that direct interest from you. Another example would be presenting your work or research to other professionals at a conference or an event where others are able to discover who you are and learn from you. And for passive behaviors, you may start connecting with others on LinkedIn or following their social media. Being available for others to engage with you first is a more passive behavior. And, it's good to be proactive and engage in active networking, but it's also good to do some of these passive behaviors like smiling and waving at others or liking their posts on social media so that they can begin to recognize you and see you as someone who is receptive to their efforts to connect. Collecting information or researching companies is another way to do this because as you expand your knowledge, you become more prepared to actively apply it. And making posts on LinkedIn or social media about your professional endeavors is a passive example of networking yourself because you're putting it out there, but in a less direct manner. Now, both of these types of networking are really great to be doing. Active networking tends to be a little harder, especially for introverts or people who may be less used to doing it. So I do encourage you to try and reflect on what networking strategies you lean towards and see if you can expand beyond that. Okay, so I want to wrap this up with a little challenge. It's time to start networking yourself. Your challenge is to attend a social networking event of your choice. From this event, make a goal to follow at least 5 new connections on social media. And then you're going to follow up with at least one of those contacts using that contact information you received from them. Treat this as an experiment and just see how it goes. It's a great way to practice, and you might get to meet some really great people doing this. I hope that this information was helpful to you, and thank you so much for participating in this presentation. If you have any questions, please contact Johnson School Jobs at utdallas.edu or give us a call at ECS Career Services. And please scan this QR code to fill out a survey and record your attendance for this presentation. Thanks so much.